Hey guys, how's it going? This is Waj from the MW Technology channel on YouTube, and in this video we'll be doing a direct comparison between the Samsung Gear 2 Neo Edition and the Sony SmartWatch 2. Now currently these two smartwatches are the kind of mid-range of wearable technologies that you can get right now, and they're pretty fully featured respectively, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at each of them and see how they compare against each other. And this video is going to be great for anybody looking into either getting any of these smartwatches or if they're just curious on how these two compare against each other. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the physical design and the comfort level of both of these wearable devices. Now in terms of comfort, they both feel really good in the wrist. They don't feel that heavy at all, and the straps themselves are pretty comfortable for long-term use. They're like really any other watch. They're just a little bit bigger than most conventional watches, but certainly not too obstructive or overly obscene in terms of overall design and form factor. Now in terms of design itself, both of the smartwatches actually come in a variety of different colors. Sony and Samsung do a really good job of giving you the opportunity to kind of express your color palette, and you can select whichever strap you like in terms of if you like a different specific type of color, or in the Sony case you can actually have a metal band rather than the plastic band. And the Samsung, even though there's less flexibility in terms of choosing different bands, there's still a lot of variety from the styles of bands you can choose from. Now in terms of the construction themselves, the Sony SmartWatch 2 is actually made up out of aluminum and a pretty high quality metal materials. It feels really solid. It has that square shape, which is definitely sleek and not bad. Even though, you know, it does look a little bit larger than most conventional watches, it's certainly nothing that'll stand out too much like a sore thumb. Now, since you're going to be wearing this device throughout most of the day, durability is certainly a big issue in both devices. Now, both of them are waterproof as well as scratch proof, and the Sony SmartWatch 2 actually has an IP57 rating versus the IP67 rating on the Samsung Gear 2. Now, again, the Sony is waterproof to the same level, but it's not as dustproof as the Samsung. Now, in the weight of the SmartWatch 2 from Sony varies tremendously depending on which model you choose. If you choose to get that metal band, it's going to add quite a bit of weight, adding up to 123 grams versus the regular normal plastic band on the Sony SmartWatch 2. Now the Samsung just measures about 68 grams, which is fairly good as well. Now taking a look at the displays on both the devices, you'll see that they have a fairly similar size of display. They're both around 1.6 inches. Now the Sony SmartWatch 2 has an LCD capacitive touchscreen display which is full color with a resolution of 220 by 176 versus the Samsung has a screen size of about 1.63 inches with also a capacitive touchscreen display, but it's using Super AMOLED technology, which is going to give it some insane black levels as well as some really bright and vibrant colors. I do love the display on the Gear 2 Neo. Now in terms of resolution, the Gear 2 is about 320 by 320 pixels, so again a fairly decent resolution for the overall screen size. Now internally, when we take a look at these two smartwatches, you'll notice that the Samsung is certainly much more higher performing in terms of those internal specifications. Now the Sony is certainly underpowered compared to the Samsung. It basically has an ARM Cortex chip that's clocked in just under 200 megahertz, and we don't know exactly how much internal memory or RAM it has. Sony hasn't released those figures yet, but it's probably a limited amount considering the processor. And when we take a look at the Samsung, which has a dual-core 1 gigahertz processor with 512 megabytes of RAM with 4 gigs of internal storage, you can definitely see that technically it's far superior. Now keep in mind that both of these are glorified timekeeping devices, so you don't really need that much internal horsepower to kind of use it on a day-to-day basis. The Sony, sure, it's not as quick and fluid as the Samsung, but it definitely gets the job done in pretty much all of its applications. Now taking a look at the connectivity between these two smartwatches, you'll notice that the Samsung has Bluetooth 4.0 and the Sony SmartWatch 2 has actually Bluetooth 3.0 plus HS. Now Bluetooth 3.0 is certainly the last generation of Bluetooth technology, but in reality it doesn't really make too much difference in terms of data throughput wirelessly, I think they're both pretty adequate. Obviously, the Samsung has the newer standard, but it might benefit you in the future if they have some kind of benefit of Bluetooth 4.0 versus the 3.0, but the Samsung does have the better and newer standard. Now, furthermore, the Sony SmartWatch 2 has NFC capabilities. Now, just located above the display of the Samsung Gear 2 is an IR blaster, which is allowing you to basically control your TV, your home theater system, anything that uses infrared technology as a remote control, and you can basically control those devices using the phone itself. Additionally, the Gear 2 has a heart rate monitor, which is going to allow you to sync up with your Samsung device and sync up with your S Health app and basically measure your heart rate and your progression of exercising and how you're doing in terms of exercising and what your kind of progression is in terms of calorie input and a whole bunch of health related information, as well as going to monitor your stress levels as well as your sleep. So a lot of possibilities with that heart rate monitor built right into the smartwatch. Now, in terms of compatibility, Sony is definitely making the smartwatch category itself as compatible as possible. Basically, you can use any smartphone or tablet that has Android 4.0 or newer. So very, very compatible and will work with a wide range of devices from Android. Now, the Samsung Gear series of devices is really optimized with the Samsung Galaxy and Note series of smartphones. So you really have to have a Galaxy phone that's S3 or higher to use all the features of the Samsung Gear series smart devices. And without that, you really have to root your Android phone and do some kind of trickery to sync up to the Gear smartwatch. But natively, you definitely need a Samsung phone, and it works the best that way as well. Now, thankfully, both operating systems that run the smartwatches are very, very fully packed and very comparable to each other. They both have a series of health-related apps that'll be optimized when you're doing kind of health-related activities such as exercising and running and things like that. They also have a slew of customization features, so you could change the watch faces as well as the themes of the smartwatch themselves. And furthermore, you're mainly going to use this to obviously get your notifications from your social media sites such as Facebook and Twitter, as well as Gmail integration, as well as just general email notifications. So they both work really well for that. And you could obviously make and receive phone calls, which is pretty cool. And additionally, you can check your text messages on both smartwatches, and they both offer really the same amount of features in terms of those kind of applications. Now, one of the last things that we're going to talk about is the battery performance of both of these smartwatches. Now, the Samsung is definitely not bad. You'll get about 2 to 3 days in terms of typical usage, especially if you're checking your email notifications and making phone calls on a regular basis and receiving phone calls, of course. You'll definitely get a little bit less battery depending upon how you use it, but typically 2 to 3 days of decent amount of usage. Now, if you're kind of really going to use it on a really low kind of scale on occasion, you'll probably get something around 6 days to 7 days out of it. So definitely pretty good. Now, the Sony is a little bit better in terms of power management. It has a more efficient internal system in terms of power usage, and it'll get somewhere around 3 to 4 days of battery usage, even when you're using it pretty heavily. I had this experience with no problem in terms of battery life on the Sony, and you get more than a week if you just use it on occasion. So both are tremendously good in terms of battery performance, and charging is also pretty quick in both devices as well. Now, the last and final thing that we're going to talk about is the price on both of these things. Now, the price is going to fluctuate depending upon where you are in the world and what time you're watching this video, of course. But right now, the Sony is actually on sale. It's around $150 for the SmartWatch 2 without the metal band, just the plain plastic band. And the Neo just came out, the Gear 2, and it's going for about $250 Canadian. And and it's definitely not bad. It's certainly a good option if you don't need the camera of the just the standard Gear 2, and certainly has most of the features that I would need. If you need that camera, you can always go with the standard Gear 2, but internally it's really identical. Now, of course, you're going to have to make the decision in terms of which feature set and price point that would best suit your needs. I really do like these Sony SmartWatch 2. I love the versatility of it, and the price point is pretty darn kind of acceptable. Now, obviously, these are things that you definitely don't need. It's a thing that you could definitely certainly live without, and most of these wearables are like that, but it's definitely a cool gadget and will certainly be useful in certain types of applications. So definitely check them out yourself, and I would love to hear what your opinions are on both of these two devices. Let me know which you think is best suited for your needs. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And if you like the video, please make sure to give us a thumbs up, as well as check out our YouTube page, Majid Sayed 2, for more tech-related comparisons and reviews. But other than that, guys, we'll see you later. Take care.